Welcome back to another episode of The Only Playbook, folks. Episode 31, Week 15 is officially wrapped up. We had a couple of later games that we didn't get to recap the last episode, so we're going to jump through those, and then we have a full Week 16 slate of games that we need to preview. Fantasy football playoffs are in full force. I am unfortunately knocked out of our playoffs. Congratulations, Shovit. Happy late birthday to you. Great dirty 30 birthday present there. So it's going to be interesting because if you both win, you guys face each other the following week. So could set up a wild ride. We're the only playbook again. I'm Sweet Card, got Shovit. Guys, how are we doing?
Feeling pretty good, man. I'm so shocked that I came up with a win. It was Gibson versus your underperforming Metcalf, and Gibson, not that many carries, but got enough catches for me and got the touchdown for me to win the game. So that was awesome. So good 30th present there from you. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank Mike Evans. Maybe if we had a full healthy team, and who knows, could have been a different story, but that's fantasy football. So that's what happens. Shoshote, you had an easier route and you beat Sandman, who just pretty much showed up to the playoffs and then immediately got eliminated, never stood a chance. But this week's going to be a little bit tougher.
Yeah, I got to play Riaz, who's he doesn't even make that many transactions, but his players have been pretty healthy until recently. So he got racked up a lot of wins that way. But, let's see where the quicker trigger fingers are on these waiver wire pickups, because that's going to determine everything here.
And Riaz is en route to Dallas as we speak from Tennessee or Atlanta? I forget where he lives.
Yeah, somewhere in that Midwest little town.
Yeah. So, and he's going to be joining us for these first slate of games, which the Titans play tonight. So that's his favorite team. There's going to be a lot of fantasy implications there. So a lot to unpack this episode, guys. Let's jump into it. Appreciate you guys tuning in again. Social media, if you like our content, if you can, spread the word, subscribe, tell your friends. We're on all the Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor, all of the platforms for podcasting. YouTube, obviously, we have at The Only Playbook, and then we're on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Everywhere we're at The Only Playbook except Twitter. We are at Only Playbook. Turn your notifications on. A lot of people have been interacting with us through the DMs recently, getting bombarded this morning. Shout out to Tanner, dude with a million questions. So
dude, he's getting so much smarter. You can just tell by the interaction from now, like week 4 or whatever that was. He's asking all the right questions. He's starting all the right people. Proud of little old Tanner. I don't know.
Yeah, and he's in the playoffs in all of his leagues. He said so. That's fucking hype, man. Good for you. So
I just want to give a quick shout out to my girlfriend Zelina. So she got me this cup, which we can't really see that well, but it's a mug that says The Only Playbook on it, and it has our logo on here. So if enough people want it, we can make some orders out there and get this out there to.
Wow. If that cup was copper, you could call it your copper cup.
Oh, copper cup. I like that.
That would be sick. No, that looks badass. I can't wait to get mine. And if anybody else wants that, let us know. We are more than happy to mass produce that shit because it looks amazing. And who doesn't drink coffee anymore? So or tea or whatever the hell people can drink. You can drink anything in there. So shout out to Zelina. Appreciate that. That's fucking fantastic. Christmas is 2 days away, guys. Christmas Eve is 1 day away. That's the math. And that's how it typically goes, eve and then day. Yep. We want to do something special for the people that have supported us so far in our first, season venturing into this podcast. We had one giveaway earlier this year. Whoever engaged with us and won, thank you. Appreciate that. This time we want to do another one. We're going to do a Christmas giveaway, Jolly St. Nick. We're not the Grinch. So we want to be happy and jolly and spread joy and not grinchiness. So what's the prize? Anybody else want to say the prize? Because this is really progressive ass shit for us.
Yeah, so we are going to give away some Bitcoin.
We're changing our name from The Only Playbook to Bitcoin.com Arena.
Yeah, or The Only Bitcoin, because that's the only crypto being Bitcoin.
Only crypto.
Wow. So I'm gonna get on that quick.
Yeah. But $10 in Bitcoin to the first three people that come closest to answering this following question. And that question is, what will be the highest individual fantasy scoring performance in fantasy football this week in a full point PPR. So not person, not team, but the total number of points an individual will put on paper.
So let me get this straight. First 3 people to tweet at us, or can they Instagram us too, or is Twitter?
Twitter can be Twitter. Either or. I mean, Instagram DMs or Twitter.
Okay, so first 3 people to Instagram us or tweet to us in the DMs that accurately get close to the highest scoring number in full PPR will get some Bitcoin sent straight to their crypto wallet. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Big caveat, between when this episode gets done recording and we put it out, chances are the game tonight will have already happened, right? So, and chances are guesses won't come in until after this game happens. So we're going to well, I guess we don't have to. We don't have to throw out this game. It can still be included, right? Because in theory, or am I wrong? Because then the game already happened, so we already know the fantasy points. Actually, no, I take that back. Yeah, we're going to throw this game out because the game will have already happened, so people can guess. If like AJ Brown puts up 45, you can literally just
that's true. That sounds all kinds of illegal.
Yeah, so we're going to throw out the 49ers and Titans game completely. So it's going to start with the Saturday games because I think we'll have a good chance to have the episode out before that game starts. So yes, Shisho, like you said, first 3 people to get closest to the highest individual scoring performance this week, a total number. So tweet or message us a number of the highest scoring individual performance you think will be put on display this week in full point PPR. You will get $10 in Bitcoin transferred directly to your crypto wallet. So, that could be literally $23 by the time we even get done with this.
Or $100 in 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So that's just something we want to do. We want to continue doing that. The more support we get, the more it allows us to do that and give back to you guys. So spread the word. The Only Playbook is here to stay. This is our first season. We're 16 weeks in, and we're not going anywhere. So appreciate all the support so far, guys, and Merry Christmas. So to whoever wins that. Let's jump into the recaps, guys. We have 4 games. 2 games happen on Monday night, 2 games happen on Tuesday night. A lot of action, a lot of implications. First game on Monday, early start to Monday night doubleheader, 4 p.m. start. The Raiders traveled to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Battle of a 7-6 and a 6-7 team, both fighting for the wild card spots there in the AFC. Browns came in 3-point favorites at home. They were starting a 3rd string quarterback and still favored by 3. Over under was 41. The Raiders come in and upset the Browns, right? I mean, it's hard for me to say upset because these teams are so evenly matched, so it doesn't feel like an upset, especially because they had their 3rd string quarterback. But in theory, they upset the Browns on a last-second field goal by Daniel Carlson. 16-14 final on the road. Vegas covers the 3-point spread. Under 41 hits. Both teams are now 7-7. To be honest with you, there's really not a lot of impressive individual performances that I saw. Even the game as a whole, there was not a lot of impressive drives, nothing really sustained. Points were really hard to come by, but the Raiders ended up coming away victorious. Thanks to Daniel Carlson, the former Viking kicker, who doesn't seem to have any problems kicking anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Mullins was in there doing basically like a plug and chug action, given that Baker Mayfield is out, and he did what he could. It wasn't a very impressive game, but he didn't have any turnovers either. So the Cleveland Browns were a depleted core, and it was a low scoring affair. I just want to go fast forward to the end of the game when Derek Carr throws that pick, and you're like, oh, the Browns could definitely win this game. You have Nick Chubb, who's going to run and probably get the first down, but the Raiders get the ball back, get into field goal position, and like you said, Carlson gets that field goal and wins the game. The only bright star from this game outside of the kicker for the Raiders is probably Nick Chubb, who gets 94 yards and a touchdown. But other than that, it was a pretty lame game.
Yeah, lackluster.
Yeah. One fun fact, a big fun fact guy here. Year to that day of the game, Nick Mullins tore his ulnar collateral ligament. So exactly a year ago, he tore his UCL, which is what kind of surgery do you need to fix that?
Tommy John.
Tommy John's. So he had the Tommy John surgery, and then that was his first rep ever, like throwing a football in an actual game since that moment. And to make it a game, it was 16-14. He didn't necessarily play that bad. So that's very impressive for Nick Mullins. There was he's going to be like a perennial backup, but seems like a pretty reliable one. He's going to fit right in with all those nice little backups for a good amount of time moving forward.
Yeah, and the Browns missed a field goal this game that I mean, kind of ends up being the deciding factor, even though the game could have gone differently had that field goal gone in. But you're right, with what they had, Mullins did pretty well. I mean, it was a lot of dink and dunking, but protecting the football, 0 sacks. Chubb had a decent game, right? 91 yards and a touchdown on the ground. It was one of those situations where they were able to stick around because no offense was able to pull away. Like the Browns had opportunities, but they just were so depleted. The Raiders had opportunities, but they're the Raiders. They just love to just do this, where there are opportunities where they can pull away and win games more definitively, and they just don't. Lackluster game on the ground for Josh Jacobs. Receiving wise for the Raiders, I mean, Derek Carr did a decent job spreading the ball around. Jones, Moreau, Jacobs, Renfro, they all had north of 30 yards catching. So it was well spread game. And obviously, I think, the biggest thing is it was impressive for the Raiders to win, despite the fact that they lost the turnover battle. They were sacked more times, etc. So it was just a matter of, had the Browns been healthy, they would have gotten enough possessions to, run better, even though they ran well, but have a quarterback that can at least make throws down the field. But they just didn't have it. And their line was depleted. They were super heavily hit with COVID. And it was also weird for me to see that, the Browns love utilizing multiple running backs, and Dearness Johnson only got 1 carry for -2 yards. Otherwise, it was literally all Chubb on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of crazy to see, because you think that the whole Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb duo, you think that, they're going to share carries. But Nick Chubb, 23 carries. But on the other side too, like Josh Jacobs, like what's going on there, right? 15 carries for 52 yards. I don't know if it's credit to the Browns defense or if it's just the fact that the Raiders just can't get it rolling on offense.
16 weeks in, I think it's safe to say that the Raiders can outrun the football, because this has been the same story, different week for Josh Jacobs. You're right. It's just been a lackluster year overall for them, but from a playoff perspective, they're 7-7. They're still in the hunt technically, even though the AFC is just so freaking bunched up with the wild card race. And there's so many teams that are above 500 that, aren't even in the playoffs technically right now. So for the Raiders, they have to take on the Broncos next week. So it's going to be a battle of 2 teams fighting for wild card spots. The Browns are taking on the Packers in Lambeau Field here, so it doesn't get any easier for them. The second game of the doubleheader on Monday night, guys, was our Minnesota Vikings. They traveled to Chicago to take on the Bears, where over the last 20 games they've played there, they were 4-16. Was it going to be a repeating factor, and were the Vikings going to struggle? I mean, the game was not pretty by any means, but the Vikings came away with the W. 17-9 final on the road. Minnesota covers the 5.5-point road favorite spread, under 44 hits. The Vikings are now 7-7, again in the NFC, officially the 7th seed in the playoffs as we stand here today. Bears dropped to 4-10. So they are officially continuing to, rebuild and see kind of what they have for next year. It felt like, the one and only thing I want to say before you guys talk about this is it felt like Matt Nagy was just avidly trying to get fired during this game. I have never seen a coach that fired up, like 60 minutes. I feel like every time they showed him, he was screaming. And that was one of the first times I've ever seen a ref throw a unnecessary rough or whatever taunting, unsportsmanlike conduct. At the coach for yelling, because we've seen coaches scream at refs all the time in football, right? All the time, and you never see that flag thrown. And they interviewed the ref afterwards, and he said some things that just crossed the line. So in my head, I'm thinking like, bro, these coaches cuss out refs all day, so I have no idea what he could have said that possibly crossed the line, but. It was weird. I mean, Nagy it almost looked like he was trying to overcompensate for his inability to be a good coach all year and knows that he's inevitably going to get fired.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of set the tone for the players too, because there's other unsportsmanlike conduct that happened. There were many times where it seemed like the Vikings were kind of getting bailed out when their offense wasn't performing, but they have these 15-yard penalties and fresh set of downs, and they're able to at least get into field goal position. But what struck out to me as far as this game is concerned is the fact that the Vikings defense stepped up, right? They had 4 sacks or 3 sacks on Justin Fields. So fantasy wise, the defense scored like 13 points. It should have been 17. I don't know why they counted that last touchdown as a touchdown. But other than that, I mean, the defense really did step up. The Vikings offense, on the other hand, even though they scored 17 points, it seems like with all the firepower that you guys have, like, you got Dalvin Cook, you got the, KJ Osborne, Justin Jefferson, Conklin and Cousins as your quarterback, you would expect them to score more points, and they didn't. So it's a little bit of concern for me moving forward but the good thing is the Vikings defense stepped up. And so, maybe if they can continue doing that, the offense doesn't need to score as many points.
Yeah, it's the same game, copy paste every single week. It's the same shit, right? Like some games they scored 30 points, some games they scored 17 points, but it's still the same game. Like we play to our opponent's weaknesses. Like we play to how they play. We never just dominate. We
Play
never
down to our competition all the time.
Yeah, always play down to our competition, and this is just another one of those games. It looks like you're watching the same game every single time you watch the Vikings game. It's the same game. Nothing changes. Like, Kirk Cousins threw for 87 passing yards, but why did he throw for 87 passing yards? Because we got bailed out of all these 15-yard penalties down the road. And when that happens, you don't have to throw. You're already in the other team's, zone. And us wanting to just, set up for field goals more often than not, playing conservatively, they don't make those executioner type throws. We're made to just run the ball, set up the pass, run the ball, set up, and they did that to the T. And this wouldn't have worked if Chicago Bears just decided to if they didn't decide to shit the bed, we would have lost this game. It was clear cut offensive. The scheme is whack. It doesn't work. Although it has been working for a lot of teams this year. I will say that this whole run first approach, the good teams, if you look out there, they dominate the run, right? But they find ways to still choose the right plays. We're not choosing the right plays. These plays suck. These plays are just trash. It's 1985 plays trying to adjust to like Kyle Shanahan. Are you kidding me? That's why the 49ers destroyed the Vikings, because you can't implement an old school approach to a progressive coach that does the same thing. They both like to run the ball. One is stuck in his old ways. One is very progressive with his methods. So yeah, Vikings, I'm very scared. They're at that 7th spot, but the Packers coming up, Rams coming up first, Packers coming up next. I can't expect them to win both those, but we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, I think the fact that like you guys were up 17-3 and the fact that Dalvin Cook has 28 rushing attempts just kind of says what Mike Zimmer was going for. Conservative style play, trying to control the clock, trying to end the game just so they don't have any sort of scores on the other end.
Yeah, this is one of the few times this year that us playing conservative actually bailed us out because of how bad the Bears offense was. How many times did the Bears have the ball in our territory? Yeah, how many times did the Bears have the ball in our red zone? It was an insane amount of times, and their offensive execution was so fucking bad. It was so bad. And yeah, the score looks closer than it is because of that stupid bogus last second touchdown. But the Bears had so many opportunities to, again, do the one thing that every other team has done to us when we decide to take our foot off the gas and start running the ball. And they couldn't. So we're fortunate because the Bears offense was that inept. But at the same time, like the second half was the same thing that we've seen all year that we complain about. First down run, second down run, third down dink off, first down run, second down run. Oh, it's third and short. Let's run. Oh, we got stuffed. So punt. So like there were like 2 or 3 times where we ran it on first, second, and third down and just punted the ball away. And I'm like, that was an absolutely, we were guys. I mean, I feel like I just go on a frustrated tangent every time we talk about the Vikings, but I was listening to so many post-game interviews and Mike Zimmer was like, yeah, they bracketed Justin Jefferson. So, we had to look elsewhere. And in my head, I'm thinking, bro, you got to be fucking kidding me. They bracketed Justin Jefferson with a practice squad safety and a 4th string cornerback. And don't tell me that the best receivers in the league, like literally, did we see the meme where Devontae Adams was getting triple covered? Like the best receivers in the league demand that kind of coverage. Cooper Kupp is getting bracketed every single game. He's breaking records, right? We're just so dumb because we think that a 4th string cornerback and a practice squad safety bracketing a top 3 receiver in the league means we need to like shy away from that, right? And it's just like that mindset of Zimmer where the minute something gets thrown his way and he automatically just reverts to like conservative run. Let's trust our defense. And we're continuing to trust a defense that we haven't been able to trust all year. Luckily they came away victorious this game. You mentioned the sack show it. We had like 3 or 4 fumble recoveries too. We did a good job of turning the ball over, or taking the ball away from them. So that really, really helped us as well. But the defense was really, really good. It's just really scary to see that we couldn't block Akeem Hicks, who is a little bit older now, but he tends to destroy the Vikings anyways. And next week we have the best defensive tackle of all time coming in Aaron Donald. So like, God help us.
There you have it.
In a nutshell. They're playing the Rams next week. We just talked about it. We're pretty much in a win it. Like we're back to a situation where we're in the wild card already and we have 3 games left. So we technically control our own destiny, right? If we win out, we're in the playoffs. But we play Packers, the Rams, and the Bears again. And so it starts with the Rams this week, guys. I mean, the one thing that I think gives me and you some form of hope is we know that it's Matthew Stafford, right? So as much as he wants to make us think that he's a Ram now, and it's a different guy, I'm like, above it all, Mike Zimmer has had your number, bro. And you're going to, with pressure, you're going to revert back to your old ways. So if we play with that mindset, I think we can come in here and win.
Watch, out of all the shit we give Mike Zimmer and everything, he totally deserves all of it. Watch, Cooper Kupp's not going to do shit this game. I'm going to tell you right now, he's not going to get Cooper Kupp numbers. It's going to be 82 yards and 6 catches. Just watch. It's what's going to happen, because these are the things that make Mike Zimmer unfireable, even though he's doing all these things that want him fired. Look at our defensive line. It's number 1 in the league. We lost both of our defensive ends. He's hanging on because he's doing these things. He's still doing just what it takes to not get fired, but he's totally deserving of the firing. So I'm suspecting not a big Cooper Kupp game because of the Matthew Stafford thing. Because, we've had Matthew Stafford's number since he was born, since he came into the league. And with the defensive pressure that we're giving, number 1 in the league with a bunch of nobodies, 68 overalls and 67 overalls on Madden, they're making it happen. So, and the Rams offensive line has been kind of weird at times. They're not as good as people think they are. That is not their strength. So yeah, and the only bad thing is Cam Akers seems to maybe return next week. So that could change a lot of things, because we don't have any game plan on that this year. It's just gonna be a plug and play, like a wizard, and we don't have any film on how to stop that. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But other than that, I'm not really afraid of the Rams as much as I should be. But we'll see. I'm more afraid of the Packers. I don't see the Packers losing 2 games to us. So.
Yep. And the Bears, obviously, they take on the Seahawks. They travel to Seattle, 2 teams who are at this point mathematically pretty much eliminated from playoff contention. So, we'll see how that one turns out. Let's kick it to Tuesday. We had Tuesday football this week. Tuesday in the NFL, 2-game doubleheader because of the COVID delays. The Seahawks were the first game on the board. They traveled to LA to take on the Rams. We just talked about. Rams took care of business, although they were down early. They end up winning the game 20-10 final, cover the 7-point spread, under 45.5 hits. This was a situation where early on the Seahawks looked good and they were competitive and they were actually in the lead. And then slowly but surely the Rams started chipping away and the Seahawks just couldn't continue to sustain drives or score points.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where the defense for both teams were kind of stepping up at times. Matthew Stafford was getting sacked, and so was Russell Wilson. But at the end of the day, the Seahawks, I mean, they had to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. And then that's just not what was in the schedule. And, it was just one of those things where the better team, the Rams with more offensive power and with Cooper Kupp, who seems to go up there and just grab anything that Matthew Stafford throws at him. They're just able to run the ball or, get some yards efficiently and come up with the W. And the other thing is DK Metcalf, man, that guy just isn't getting the targets. When he is, Ramsey is going up, tipping the balls and stopping him from getting catches. And so nothing really going for the Seahawks there.
Yeah, wide open touchdown where he burned Ramsey. That was massively underthrown. But, it is what it is. It's Russell Wilson. So we just brush it off like he's so good. Who cares?
Oh, no more brushing off. That man got dropped from my roster this morning. I had enough. I've seen enough. There was plays where Ramsey got bailed out big time. He did make those super stretchy tips. That was impressive because I don't think any other cornerback could do that. Maybe Patrick Peterson against Cole Kmet. But other than that, those things are hard, and he made those happen, but he did get burned quite often. I did see at least 3 plays where that's 50 yards and a touchdown left on the floor because bad quarterback play or just not making the right read. But yeah, that being said, Seahawks tried, I mean, at least I put them in the coffin 5 weeks ago, and they just kept finding ways to stay alive. Maybe it will work, but it's done. It's a done deal. They need to kind of figure out, they need to look at life outside of Russell Wilson. Maybe that's the move. I don't know what it is. It's definitely not the move, but I feel like that's what Russell Wilson wants. He wants a new future with a good offensive line, at least. At least that's what he deserves. And then, yeah, DK Metcalf, maybe he'll work solidly with a quicker wide receiver. This whole Lockett DK Metcalf thing should work because they're 2 completely different wide receivers that do completely different things. But, it would help if DK would do more drags and do more in and outs. I just see very limited routes for DK. It's either go deep or do a slant. So I guess that makes it easier to guard him. I don't know, but it's I don't get it. I really don't get it. One of the most talented players of this decade that we will see and for future to come. That's just, there's a lot of pieces missing. I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, right? Because it's not like he's in a bad situation. He's got a fucking future Hall of Fame quarterback opposing him. He's got a really talented receiver, like you said, who does everything that he doesn't do, right? So it's a perfect complement. Something is missing here. I've heard rumblings about Pete Carroll. I know he's he's like 78. He's almost 80 years old, so he's getting up there in age. And I know Russell Wilson and I don't know. I know they've had a debacle where he was asking for a trade in the offseason, but they made it happen. So it's going to be one of those. I think it's either you're going to commit to Russell Wilson, even though he's, he could still give you another solid 5 years, or you're going to commit to Pete Carroll long-term, which at this point he's pushing 80. So it seems like more likely that you try to stick with Russell Wilson and bring in, maybe a more savvy offensive minded guy, maybe a younger guy who's got more of a progressive mindset to this generation's NFL. But that'll be interesting for them. Again, yeah, like you said, their coffin is officially shut from a playoff spot. They're playing the Bears next week. So 2 teams, like we mentioned, not a lot to play for. On the other side, yeah, Cooper Kupp, historic season. I hope you're right. God, I hope you're right that he doesn't have the type of game he has next week. On the flip side, it's bittersweet because I have him on my fantasy team. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Well, and I have Jefferson too. So they're playing each other. So, I mean, I'm fucking excited about this.
Yeah. You need just both of them unleashed, actually.
Yeah. So to me, a shootout's the best thing where you're just targeting your best receiver the entire time. But one thing I want to talk about, you mentioned Cam Akers. Daryl Henderson finally came back from injury this week, but it was his first week back, and he'd been the bell cow up until this point, having a great year. Sony Michel had been doing really, really well in his absence, and first game Daryl Henderson's back, Michel still out carries him by 3 times as many carries, and very productive.
Yeah, who's gonna say it? Who's gonna say it? Somebody learned the playbook, figured it out. He figured it out. They ran all the routes. They did some screen passes. I'm not sure if he caught that one actually, but. And then they ran to the outside, they ran up the middle. Sony Michel was getting like 10-yard runs at times. So I think it's safe to say Daryl Henderson and Sony Michel are definitely in a split. And if you have either one, you're leaning towards Sony Michel at this point. I mean, just look who they trusted most recently. They're both healthy. Henderson even had an extra day to rest. He didn't have to play last week because of COVID. And then they totally went with Michel most of the game, even during a comeback. So that being said, the Henderson owners definitely stressing right now. I would definitely start somebody else. We're talking like Craig Reynolds versus Henderson type of talk right now, even though Henderson was double-digit monster all season long. So this is the way the fantasy football gods giveth and the gods taketh. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, spot on. Shovit, anything last minute to add before we jump into the next game?
No, I mean, I think that was pretty much all for the Seahawks, and ready to talk about the Eagles and Gibson.
Yeah, Gibson, your MVP that got you to the next round of the playoffs.
It's nice to see that though, right? Because me and Shovit all season long, like nobody has disappointed me more than Antonio Gibson. Miles Sanders, but he gets hurt, and like I just expect like wussiness from Miles Sanders, right? But Antonio Gibson was supposed to be the new CMC, right? That's what we were labeled. That's why I drafted him. And he's not getting any of that, mainly because of McKissick doing a much better job than him in the passing game. But without McKissick, he didn't drop any passes, did he? I don't think he did. And he made some catches. They were like, towards the sideline. They were mainly like right at the sideline type of passes. But yeah, the usage was there, and that's the kind of production you get when you get used that much with that much skill. So it was kind of nice to see, because now I can put him back in the lineup, but we'll see if that will be the Gibson owner's demise. Gibson will be the reason our season ends. Who knows?
It's crazy because of Gibson, they get to the red zone and they're using him so much that I think he like needs some rest or something. And then Patterson comes in and just vultures him at like the 5-yard line or, less than 10-yard line and gets the touchdown. So it's like, it's great when you're cheering on your player and he's getting them to the red zone. Then you see Patterson come in and just straight up vulture. But
to Patterson's defense, Gibson had 15 carries for 26 yards. Let's not act like he was running the ball effectively. He caught a couple of really good passes early on. That was impressive. Yeah. But running wise, 15 for 26, you're averaging less than 2 yards a carry.
The 15 was also due to the fact that he had a toe injury and went to the tent at some point, and then I think he was out most of the second quarter. And so that's one of the reasons why like you're not going to see more CMC like numbers from him. But I thought Washington football team did a pretty good job in the first half. I thought like they were up 10-0, had an interception, got a fumble, and they looked like they could potentially beat the Eagles. But the Eagles did what we know the Eagles to do since like week 5 of the NFL, which is run the ball. So you mentioned Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders had a amazing day.
Game of the career. He almost had a touchdown too, man. First touchdown of the year, and he got stopped at the 1.
Yeah, so 18 carries, 131 yards. I mean, it seems like this is what the Eagles are going to continue doing. It's run the ball, run. Sucks for Devontae Smith owners, or I guess not Dallas Goedert, but Devontae Smith owners, but that's the Eagles' identity: run the ball, and it works.
Yeah, they won the game. 27-17. They cover the 6.5 point spread. The over 42 hit. They're 7-7 now, so they're still fighting for that last playoff spot. Washington with 8 losses, it's going to be very, very difficult. They're going to have to win out and get some help. They have to take on the Cowboys in Dallas next week. So, I mean, a tough road for them. Eagles get the Giants. So it seems like the path is opening up more for the Eagles than it is for the football team. Another great fantasy game from Jalen Hurts for you, Shisho. 2 rushing touchdowns. I think both of them were 1 yard out, or like both, were they both 1 yard sneaks?
QB sneaks. Yep.
Yeah. And threw for 296 and a touchdown pass. So a big game for Jalen. He continues to produce, and he gets another good matchup next week. So
here's a fun fact about Jalen Hurts. He's the only quarterback ever with 30 rushing yards in each of their first 17 career starts. It's not much, but it's honest work.
That's pretty consistent. 17 games in a row where you're a quarterback rushing for 30 plus yards.
That over on that.
Yeah. I mean, Vegas is going to start having to set his over under at like 50 plus at this point. But no, nonetheless, that's the last game for last week. Obviously, we're already at Thursday, so this timing is so weird. We have a Thursday night football game here tonight that we got to talk about. So we're going to preview all those games. But before we preview all the games, we have a long list of more injuries, more COVID, a lot to talk about. Shishot, give us that rundown.
All right, it's not as much because I'm starting to get used to like all these random names showing up on the COVID list, and I'm just going to leave all that out. We're only going to talk about what's pertinent. During this recording, I got some new updates as well. So let me just quickly, so the Packers, Kenny Clark, he's a defensive tackle. He's a big part of their run stopping ability. He's on the COVID list. Who do they play again? Who do the Packers play?
The Packers are playing the Browns this week.
The Browns. So that gives the run game a boost. Justin Fields didn't practice. Tyler Lockett is now activated off of the COVID list. And then Lamar Jackson is still sidelined. So Lamar Jackson is not trending towards playing at this moment. Some things for today of note. A.J. Brown is playing. Last time he said he was playing, he was on a pitch count. But I think he's had enough time to rest. I don't think this is a pitch count situation. They should be fully using him now. As well as Julio Jones is not on the injury report after straining his hamstring last week. So that one is fake news beyond belief. I will not start Julio Jones, but I'm going to hold on to him for dear life. I don't know why. Dalvin Cook, as to Shovit's demise, was unvaxxed. So it's Alexander Madison time, who just was unvaxxed and was on the COVID list. So he came and then he got out. It's like a tag team duo kind of thing with COVID. So Madison time there. I really hope that plexiglass holds up for Kirk Cousins because he's right around those guys. And, we can lose Dalvin Cook and we can lose Madison. And we have Wangu and all these guys, even CJ Ham if need be. But if Kirk Cousins goes down, season's over, right?
Yeah,
So
John Mannion is not stepping in and doing anything.
Let's pray to God that plexiglass holds up there. Emmanuel Sanders is full practice. So Gabriel Davis owners should be questioning their pickup at this moment because that will definitely eat up some of his catches or at least some of those red zone targets. Fournette's not playing. Evans not playing and Godwin's not playing. Godwin and Fournette are on the IR, so forget about him. Evans is just not playing this game for now. Antonio Brown is also not looking good. We were kind of just assuming he would play, but it's looking a little sketch right now. And who reminds me of Antonio Brown the most on that team? Tyler Johnson, right? It almost looks like a replica. It's kind of like that Madison and Cook thing for me. Every time I see Tyler Johnson, mainly because he has 1.8 and Brown is 8.1. It just kind of seems like, what are you trying to do there? But yeah, he plays well. He got 7 targets last week after everybody else left. You also still have Perriman there, but I don't think Perriman's trust value is as high as Tyler Johnson is. They've been breeding Tyler Johnson this whole time, right? He's been behind 3 of the greatest duos or trios in recent time, and he's learning from all of these guys. You expect some production versus Perriman just got added. He was there, then he left, and he came back. trust value is not as high as Tyler Johnson is. So if you wanted to start somebody risky, go for big, especially if Antonio Brown doesn't play, Tyler Johnson becomes a must start. I don't know who's talking about it. Maybe nobody's talking about it. But if Antonio Brown doesn't play, Tyler Johnson's hands down a must start. And then Brandon Cooks is on the COVID list, so he won't be activated this week. Elijah Mitchell has been ruled out for tonight. He's not going to be playing. Another week of Jeff Wilson. And then James Conner and Rondale Moore will be game time decisions for the Cardinals. So this is probably a good time to see if Edmonds can get his start for your fantasy team. And Antonio Gibson was questionable for that toe, but he came back in. Shouldn't be a problem. Landry for the Browns looks like he's coming off the COVID list, and looking at his last 3 games, looks very promising from a PPR standpoint. You might want to pick him up if you have some wide receiver issues like myself. All 3 of my wide receivers are injured. So I just went and picked up like 5 wide receivers to see what happens. Landry was one of them. I'm pretty confident in his production because they have nobody else and he gets hella targets. Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon both fully practiced for the first time. They were having some problems, not practicing, but they're both full now, so no worries there. Miles Sanders is questionable. Stevenson misses practice for the Patriots, but Damian Harris is back. So now it's Damian Harris's time to shine once again. And then Saints are starting Ian Book versus the Dolphins defense.
Notre Dame boy.
Yep. And Taysom Hill and Simeon are both on the COVID list. So one more day of Dolphins defense fantasy points, most likely. And the last thing I'm going to add is Austin Eckler is on the COVID list, but he still has a chance to be pulled off of it by Saturday, as with Tyreek Hill and Kelsey.
I honestly hope Kelsey does not get taken off. I know that's contrary for you, but I am playing Kelsey and I need him to not play. So that would be huge.
Yeah, I don't really care about Kelsey anymore. I'm screwed with Kelsey. I lost that league by 6 points because of Matthew Stafford's inadequate fantasy footballing. But yeah, Mark Andrews and Justin Tucker are very much alive. So let's get some more Mark Andrews points this week.
Yeah, I can get some Mark Andrews in my consolation bracket in our league, so that'll be exciting. That's the injury report. Obviously, follow us at Only Playbook on Twitter. We we update the injury stuff pretty much periodically every day, all the time. So notifications on if you want to make sure that you are the one that picked up Alexander Madison and not the guy you're playing against. Sometimes it'd be like that. So get those notifications on, guys. Let's get into the previews. We have every game on the border to preview, and then we have to get through our survivor picks. So let's jump into it. Tonight, you mentioned it, Shishot, 49ers are traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Big marquee matchup. Titans coming in at 9-5. 49ers 8-6. Favorites on the road by 3. Over under 44. You just mentioned Elijah Mitchell out another week. That's another week for Jeff Wilson. I didn't start him last week, but he had his best game of the season. But the Titans are stout against the run. Are you concerned with the Jeff Wilson just simply because they don't like to use him on every down and the Titans play good on running?
I don't think so. If I'm starting Jeff Wilson as my flex, I'm pretty content with that. I can't really ask for more. If I'm starting him as my wide receiver RB1 or RB2, then there might be somebody else I could play, right? There may be somebody. Maybe because you are playing the number 1 run defense, and it's not even close. Like, it's really not close. They focus on stopping the run. That's why the few games that they've lost, they've just been exploited through the air. But they're not beatable on the ground. But the volume is the name of the game, and we're talking about the most progressive running team of all time. So I would like to believe that Kyle Shanahan, if I were to pick any offensive coordinator to figure out this run-stopping defense, it's got to be Kyle Shanahan. So I got to give Jeff Wilson the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he might get like 11 points, but that's still double digits. And, me expecting that gives me I'm content with it, with those expectations.
Yeah, both teams, I think, have a similar offensive strategy as far as running the ball first and then kind of having their quarterbacks complement that with play actions and things of that sort. I'm going to give the upper hand to the 49ers because I feel like they have a lot more options with Deebo Samuel. They've got Kittle, and they've got Ayuk as well. So I feel like they'll be able to, even with the stout Titans run defense, I feel like Garoppolo is a good enough quarterback to get the ball moving and is able to get points on the board. Whereas Titans, they've just been committing a lot of turnovers. They find ways to lose games. Found ways to lose games against the Steelers, and even the past 3 weeks, to me, just too many turnovers. And that's going to be the key for them to win the game, is to limit that. And have Tannehill have a superb game, which, I'm going to bet that they don't, and the 49ers are going to end up winning this game.
Yeah, the Titans have the Colts right on their heels, right? Who are only one game back in the division right now. So they need a win at home to continue to be leading the AFC South, with the Colts again on their heels. And speaking, actually let's hold off on that. But yeah, 49ers -3 on the road. I do like the line. I like the fact that they run the ball. But being on the road, and then they're playing against a team that does the one thing that they do well, they stop well. It's an interesting matchup. AJ Brown coming back is big, obviously, for the Titans. We know they haven't really had many players to throw the ball to, but because the 49ers are able to exploit this really, really bad pass defense in Tennessee, you got to imagine that's going to be Kittle fest. You got to imagine there's going to be a lot of Debo and Ayuk.
Oh, yeah. I'm expecting big things from Kittle. Kittle's actually on pace to be the greatest tight end of all time in a four-week span. So get this. Kittle has 425 receiving yards over his last 3 games. That's tied for the most in a 3-game span among tight ends all time. Can you guess who the other tight end is? It's too hard to guess.
It's a random one? Like, it's not a
it's not as random, but it's become random.
Kansas City. Who's the old Kansas City?
It's not Gonzalez. It's not.
It was last year.
Oh, it was last year. Oh, was it Kelsey?
What? Kelsey? Waller.
Yeah. So yeah, he's tied that record, and the usage is insane, right? He's getting hella targets. He's averaging the highest yards per game this season. I know he's missed a lot of games, but when he's playing, outside of that one game when he got re-hurt, when we were watching it, and he got re-injured, and that put him out again. If you take that one game out, he's averaging like over 85 yards per game. Right now, he's averaging 77 receiving yards per game, which is the most among tight ends. And he's got over 90 or more receiving yards in each of his last 3 games. So if I were to have one tight end right now, I would want it to be Kittle, because the usage is just perfect. You can't ask for anything more.
Yeah, Kittle's a beast. If you look at the games that he played that he didn't have points, but if we got points for like the blocking that he did, I think we would be doing really well.
I got an invite.
He's the best overall tight end for sure when it comes to blocking and everything else.
Yeah, for sure. I got an invite from one of my friends to play in a fantasy football league next year, where they use punting inside the 20-yard line as 1 point.
That's really cool. I like that.
Hey, bring on the more challenges, the better. It's like I want more. I want like different scoring and things like that. I hate like the bonus scoring leagues. That's like the most annoying thing ever to me, because it's like I don't care that it's 285 to 346. Like, that's annoying. But I do like I want to get more involved in IDP. I've never played IDP.
Yeah. It makes you like watch football with like a more holistic approach. You watch like defenders and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely more fun.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be a good matchup tonight. Again, Riyad's flying in, his Titans. You got AJ Brown, you're playing against him. So a lot of bittersweet, contradicting emotions and feelings there for them.
Am I being too rash with his decision though? Because last time I felt this way, I started Tony Jones Jr. It's the same feeling. That's the same vibes I'm getting right now.
Talk to us about your options real quick, because I have to run down to my team with you guys as well for the playoffs.
Yeah. So it's Jarvis Landry, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, or Adam Thielen. And I don't know about the health of Adam Thielen.
If Adam Thielen is healthy, you got to start him.
Yeah, healthy Adam Thielen, you start Adam Thielen.
Problem is that's Sunday, and AJ Brown plays tonight. So if I forego AJ Brown, then I can't make up for this. And if he doesn't play and I missed out on AJ Brown, then I lose.
I know. I think you start AJ Brown. The people that you don't get concerned with, if for some reason you don't start them and they play well, is like an Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jarvis Landry, right? Because those are just brand new pickups. So I feel like your trust factor is definitely in AJ Brown and Adam Thielen versus those two guys, I'd imagine.
I have no trust factor in AJ Brown. It's just, this is all emotions right now. And I'm trying to be subjective about this, but it's hard to trust him that much, because last time I trusted him this much, he was on a snap count. And they're not. I've looked all over the internet on all the most trusting websites. Nobody's mentioning snap count. So it's like, got to make a weird decision here. Here's some things why Amon-Ra St. Brown is intriguing to people that have to start him if they don't have the choices that I do. I think over the last 3 games, he's had double-digit targets. He's had like 8 catches almost every game. And his quarterback play hasn't changed, right? It's still the same quarterback, so you can expect similar volume. And who else do you throw it to there? Nobody. You're without Hawkinson for sure now. So those targets have come there. The trust factor's there, and they're going to be losing. They're going to be behind in a lot of games. So, like, that is like if I were to mix up a recipe for a wide receiver getting you 10 fantasy points, like that seems about as clear cut as it gets, right? The only problem is the Lions might be better than the teams they face. So maybe
they're playing the Falcons this week too.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's the problem here. But yeah, I don't want to get too cute either, but I also don't want to miss out on like linear progressions. Like that's a very important linear progression you got to kind of keep track of with the amount of volume he's getting and the amount of trust in the red zone he's getting. That's like it's a clear-cut wide receiver one. So
yeah, for sure.
Landry is definitely the guy there that's like kind of a big question mark. I mean, it's hard to trust anything from the Cleveland Browns in terms of offense is concerned. Outside of running back, so you have to throw the ball often. Is what you're saying? Yeah.
But who's the quarterback? Mullins again?
I don't think that matters at that point. Like it's just they got to force feed him. Who else do they give the ball to? People Jones. He'll probably get like 5 targets, maybe 6. It's got to be Landry 10 targets, right? It just has to. Like you put up a recipe for losing if you don't give Landry 10 targets. I assume, but who the fuck knows? It's just
I don't know. I mean, it could be 10 targets for Landry, but he gets like 4 catches for 30 yards too. So it's like, I don't know. Landry,
that was Justin Jefferson's stats last week.
Yeah. But he had a touchdown.
This is true.
Exactly. So I don't know. Shit. That's a tough one. If you're going with people that have like the firepower and the upside, like AJ Brown, obviously is the guy. But like you said, it's in fantasy, it's important to sometimes put aside like the name and the persona by the guy and pick the most productive person. So I just will never start Amon-Ra St. Brown again because every single game he did good and the one game he did bad, he had no targets. So
you're like
that's the week I started him.
That's like my Mecole Hardman. I started him 2 times in 1 year, got me 0 points and 1 point in the 2 games I started him. That's too many games to get 1 and 0 points.
Yeah, it literally makes no sense. But yeah, that's going to be tough, but nonetheless, it's going to be a great matchup, a good football game on tap. Let's kick it into Saturday, guys. We got 2 games on Saturday this week. We talked about these teams already a little bit, but the Browns are traveling to Lambeau to take on the Packers. Packers are 11-3 atop the NFC North, atop the NFC as a whole. Cleveland 7-7. Cleveland is still fighting for a playoff spot, believe it or not, and they're still only 1 game out of their division, even though they are technically 4th in their division. So that's how close that division is. The Packers are coming in favored by 7.5 points at home. Over under 45.5. The Packers have looked good. They look like a very, very complete team. They're the one team in the NFC, even though the Vikings have beat them, that I would say is most feared, at least in my opinion. The Browns, I mean, we know what the Browns are. The Browns are not impressive. They had a shit ton of COVID issues last week. We still don't know the quarterback situation. What we do know is they run the ball, but they didn't have enough firepower to put their foot on the gas against the Raiders. What makes us believe it's going to happen in Lambeau against Rodgers and the Packers?
Yeah, this is going to be a very, very tough matchup for the Cleveland Browns, who are facing the Packers, who have a pretty good run defense. Last week, they allowed 159 rushing to the Ravens, but that was mainly to the quarterback, Huntley. They allow only like 4.1 yards per carry to their running backs. And their secondary is one of the best in the league. They're 4th in league with yards per attempt with 6.6 yards per attempt. So have a solid secondary. The defense is great. We already know about their offense. So it's going to be tough. The only, I guess, the thing to look out for is Devontae Adams versus Denzel Ward, who's been having a pretty good year this year. Whether or not that will be enough for the Browns to stop the Packers is yet to be seen. But at Packers, I'm going to take them. I even want to tease them down to, use the 6.5 teaser and have them win outright.
Yeah. Packers, there's nothing stopping this freight train. There's just nothing. They're getting Jair Alexander back, possibly this week, maybe not. It's actually not going to happen. The injury is too severe he just got cleared to come back and like work on stuff. So he might play next week, but he's not going to be playing this week. And neither is Bakhtiari. But that doesn't change anything. They're the team to beat. They have been the team to beat since about midpoint of the season. Aaron Rodgers owns the Browns. Browns have allowed a passer rating of 135 to Aaron Rodgers. That's the highest the Browns have allowed to any person. And the Rodgers is a GOAT, and you're playing at home with still COVID issues going on in Browns land. Little to no problems in Packer land. Offense is full go. Defense is fixing the pieces. How can you expect the Cleveland Browns to win this game?
The only thing I'll add is that Aaron Rodgers does have 3 sacks in each of his last 2 games. So with Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, if they can get some sacks on Aaron Rodgers, you may be able to stop him, some strip sacks. But even 3 sacks, I don't even know if that's it.
You're absolutely right. It's the turnovers. Like, you have to cause turnovers to Packers to win the game. You're not going to beat them straight up offensive firepower versus offensive firepower, because the Browns don't have any offensive firepower besides Nick Chubb. So yeah, you're going to have to cause turnovers or a lot of turnover on downs.
Yeah, turnovers and short fields, because I don't expect the Browns, especially if it's Nick Mullins, to have long sustained drives, even though they can run the football well. Their offensive line's beaten up with COVID. So it's like they're going to need turnovers, and they're going to need like 25 to 30-yard drives where they're basically getting the ball in the Packers red zone. So a lot's going to have to go right for them. The only thing that I can think of is last week or a couple weeks or the last 3 weeks, there's been games where I've been extremely confident in one side, and it's just been an insanely big upset. So the only thing working for the Browns is the fact that everybody's picking them to lose. So we'll see how that goes. But the second game on Saturday is a doozy. The Colts, who are right on the tails of the Titans, are traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals, who are second place in the Actually, they might not be second right now in the NFC. They're tied for second in the NFC overall at 10-4. They are favored at home by only 1. Colts getting some mad respect now, as they should. Over under 49. This is a doozy of a matchup, guys. Colts win this game, and Tennessee loses tonight, and they are tied atop the AFC South after the Colts had that horrendous start. Like the first 3 or 4 games, they looked awful.
Yeah, so Craig Reynolds ran all over this Arizona Cardinals last week. And what the hell is Jonathan Taylor going to do to this same run defense? The Cardinals are not, you would think that a team that loses to Detroit Lions kind of goes back to the drawing boards and says, okay, we need to figure this out and come back strong. But it's going to be tough. The Colts are 8-0 when Jonathan Taylor gets over 100 yards. So I expect the same sort of philosophy here: run the ball, give it to Jonathan Taylor, and then use Carson Wentz to be like a game manager and throw the ball when he needs to. But if the Cardinals can't stop Jonathan Taylor, they're not winning this game.
Yeah, I know, you're absolutely right. That's the same philosophy for any team that faces Indianapolis moving forward. However, I have some reasons why I think the Colts are going to win this game. A lot of things have to come together, and I think these are the perfect pieces. So Carson Wentz, first of all, from the quarterback standpoint, he's got the best ratio of touchdown to interception in the AFC right now. It's 23 passing touchdowns with 6 interceptions. He's taking care of the ball. He knows when to give the ball to Michael Pittman and when to play action and when to give the ball to Jonathan Taylor. That's literally their whole offense, but they're doing it right, which has led to, only 6 interceptions, even though 3 of them are like the dumbest interceptions ever. The Cardinals are actually, they've lost each of their last 3 home games. Colts have won each of their last 3 road games. That matters. And the Cardinals have 26 fumbles this season, which is the most in the NFL. Which team has forced the most turnovers? The Colts. So it's just, the Cardinals are going to have to figure out this Colts defense. That's the bottom line, because we know both teams can move the ball in different ways, and they can both, run the ball. They can both, I don't want to say the Colts can pass the ball too well, but I think the run game is so good that even their okay pass game can open up holes in the right times, right? So the Cardinals just can't give the ball away. The Colts have been causing people to – it's been a nightmare facing Darius Leonard and this defense. Their secondary is suspect. So people like Christian Kirk could break one free. Rondale Moore, if he plays, probably not a good start because they're good with the linebackers, and Rondale Moore just gets quick check down passes. But anything downfield, AJ Green might get 4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. These are the games where you might want to play the Cardinals wide receivers because the Colts secondary is that bad in big play situations. However, they cause a lot of turnovers. So as far as winning the game standpoint, I think the Indianapolis still has yet to show us why they can lose games outside of the, some miserable plays Carson Wentz makes, but he's not having to make those miserable plays because the run game is working so well. So how do the Cardinals beat the Colts?
Yeah, it's going to come down to Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, I think pre-injury was phenomenal. MVP candidate. He was in the conversation. Post-injury, Kyler Murray, not so much. He looked very unimpressive last week, incredibly inaccurate. And like you said, the Colts are very opportunistic and force a shit ton of turnovers. So if Kyler Murray is turning the ball over, throwing interceptions, getting strip sacked, that's not going to work because you're going to need your possessions and you're going to need to score on those possessions because the Colts run the ball really, really well. So they manage the clock well and they take care and they have the time of possession typically with Jonathan Taylor. So the schematically, it doesn't bode well for the Cardinals. So this is a time where you throw scheme out because you have literally a franchise X factor, superstar quarterback. He's going to have to make things happen. Like this is going to have to be a game where Kyler Murray has an exceptional performance to get this victory because Hopkins is out still, right? Hopkins is not there. Connor's a game time decision. And we know he's been a workhorse. He's been just touchdown heavy all year. That load is going to be shouldered to Edmonds and probably Kyler. So I'm wanting to see a more definitive performance from Kyler Murray heading into the playoffs to give me enough reason to believe that the Cardinals are an actual threat in the NFC, because if we're going to continue to see performances like last week, they're not going to get anywhere. They're one and done team.
There's a trend here. Like you mentioned, pre-injury and post-injury. Pre-injury, Kyler Murray, 73.5 completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 116.8 passer rating. Post-injury, Kyler Murray, 63.8 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and a 78.7 passer rating. So, yeah, there's a huge difference here. And I don't know if it's the actual injury or it's just the mojo. It matters. It matters. The connection with your receiver, especially with all these receivers coming in, coming out, that helps with longevity. You're keeping them healthy by using the backups, keeping these guys healthy and all that. But you're missing quality time to develop that chemistry going into the playoffs. Cardinals missed a lot of that. And that's the downside of keeping players healthy. They don't get to develop that chemistry. Like, look at Aaron Rodgers. The chemistry is just flying. He's just figuring out who to throw it to. He probably doesn't have to look at them to throw it to him anymore because he knows the exact ways the routes are done. Meanwhile, Cardinals, Kyler Murray hasn't played very much. He's coming back to figure things out. He's missing his best receiver. His running back situation is kind of weird with the whole Edmonds thing. And then now Rondale Moore's quick throwing guy is injured. I feel like this is going to last a little bit longer. And I don't know if the Colts are the team that he's going to figure this out against. But that would be nice to see because that's my Madden team. And I have slight homer favoritism towards the Cardinals. So hopefully they can kind of figure it out.
Yeah, it's going to be a good matchup. I'm excited for that one. That's great that we have that on Saturday. Let's take it into Sunday. The first game on the board Sunday is our Vikings are hosting the LA Rams, who come to town. Matthew Stafford and gang has enough experience in Minnesota from his days in Detroit. The Rams on the road here, coming in at 10-4, are favored by 3 points, over under 49.5. We already talked about the Vikings, 7-7 now. They're 7th place in the NFC, which is the last wild card spot. Playoffs started.
If the 49ers lose today, do we automatically jump to 6 or no, right? No,
because they're one game ahead of us and they own the tiebreaker because they beat us. So right. It's going to be tough for us to get that. To be honest with you, I'm completely content getting the 7th seed because as it stands now, if it stays the same way, we take on the Cowboys, and I gladly take the Cowboys over most other teams. So I know that's getting ahead of the game because we have to win out, but 3-point spread. There's something obviously that Vegas sees with the Rams being only 3-point favorites here. Vikings at home. It's still going to be a tough place to play. I think the biggest thing for us is going to be containing Aaron Donald. We struggled insanely. Like, our offensive line had been playing so well recently until this past game where Akeem Hicks and Quinn just destroyed our offensive line. Interior offensive line, the defensive tackle was getting so much pressure that it was like right in Kirk's face. So Aaron Donald, we expect probably to do even better than that because he's better than Akeem Hicks. So we're going to need to know that. We're going to need to go into the game planning for that. And that also means maybe we can't run right up the gut at Aaron Donald, right? So this is going to be an opportunity for, hopefully Thielen is healthy. If not, KJ Osborne, Justin Jefferson, Conklin, maybe even CJ Ham. We're going to have to pull all of the tricks out of the bag because there is no alternative to losing. You lose and you're pretty much out of the playoffs. So that, every trick, everything that you've been waiting for the right time, bring it all out. Enough with the conservatism and let's play like we have nothing to lose. Cause at this point we don't.
Yeah. I think the Vikings just really miss Adam Thielen. I think that's what it is. I think Justin Jefferson was a lot more efficient, got more catches on targets when Thielen was in the game than when he was not in the game. So having Thielen back is going to be a huge plus for the Vikings. And that may be what gets this offense going. But the Rams are a great team as well. I mean, they have losses, but they're great. Stafford is one of the least sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. We saw the Vikings defense come up big against the Bears. Will that defense show up against these Rams who can throw the ball? They can run the ball. And so there's not that many, I guess, deficiencies in the offense. And the Vikings they allow a lot of yards. They allow 403.4 yards per game to offenses. So it's going to be a tough matchup for the teams. I'm sure they both want to win. There's wild card potentials here. Each team wants to win more than a girl wants a Louis Vuitton bag or something. But at the end of the day, the better team is going to be the Rams with Cooper Kupp and Henderson. I think that, or Akers. It's going to be a tough time for the Vikings to stop the Rams.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be an easy game, but the Vikings have this thing with hard teams. We always put up a big fight. You know, we've been putting up a big fight against every single team. And like I said, we play to our opponents' advantages and their deadvantages. Neither of those are words, but you know what I'm trying to say.
We play to their level of competition, whether they're better than us or they're worse than us. We'll play out of our minds against really good teams, and we'll play literally make me want to rip my brains out against bad teams.
As you witnessed against the Packers, and you witnessed against the Bears, and you witnessed against the Lions, the Cardinals. We play just like the other team, although nothing changes on offense. It's still the same philosophy. However, somehow it's just like the other team. It's weird. It's insane how this works. There's probably going to be a 30 for 30 about this Viking season if they win the Super Bowl, because it's going to be the weirdest fucking season of all time. But anyways, that being said, Cooper Kupp needs to be talked about. You know, next season, Cooper Kupp could potentially be like a top 3 fantasy pick if he ends up keeping this up for 3 more games. If he gets 113 receiving yards in his last 3 games, he breaks Calvin Johnson's single season record for yards per game. So, not yards per game, total yards in a season from a wide receiver. And also another important thing to add is the Vikings only do well when the pocket is perfect for Kirk Cousins, right? He's the second most accurate quarterback of all time. He needs a perfect pocket to do this. However, he showed up on the injury report for the first time since 2013. He has a rib injury. You guys have heard about rib injuries all season long. It happened on that play where Hakeem Nicks just fell on him. So we don't know the extent of this injury, but I was watching like the practice highlights and he's like wincing with every throw. He's like this. So I don't know if anything's broken. They haven't revealed any x-rays. They haven't given us any information on this. So it's going to be something to watch, because if they're broken, I mean, he's probably not going to play. If it's like broken and it's like you have to twist when you're a quarterback, I don't understand. It's not enough information on a Thursday to decide what's going to happen, but I'm assuming he's going to try to play through it as much as he can. I'm not concerned that he won't play, but there is a worry. You do have to think about it, because if he gets hit one time, this is a fragile dad we're talking about. This is not like Justin Fields, who's like a built player. This is a fragile father figure in the football field. So if he gets tackled with a broken rib one more time, he could be done. So yeah, these are things you need to consider, especially if you're in like a 2-quarterback league and you have him playing. So
real quick. You mentioned that if the Vikings win the Super Bowl, there's going to be a 30 for 30 that needs to happen. If I win the fantasy league this year, I'm going to make myself a 30 for 30, because I drafted Dalvin Cook, who is injured now, and I can't start him, or not injured. He's in the COVID reserve, and I can't start him. So if I win this year, there's going to be a 30 for 30 in our fantasy.
That's all it takes to get a 30 for 30? Shit.
Replacing your number 1 pick, which we have both already done.
Yeah, but like in the playoffs, like second round.
You pat yourself on the back all you want, but
tell us you've never been to the playoffs without telling us you've never been to the playoffs.
When you lose
every year in the playoffs.
Congratulations for making the playoffs.
I've won a championship before. I am just saying it. That's not what
not in this league. You haven't.
I don't care. I don't care how many participation championships you won in other leagues, bro. Doesn't mean anything to
30
us.
for 30
with no Dalvin Cook, and I get
30.
Your
30 for 30 is ridiculous, bro. You lose one player, and if you win, you get a 30 for 30.
Those best
bad boy hours right now. You need to get over this ASAP.
The best player, my number 1 pick, my second pick of
weird CMC vibes here. Oh, the guy didn't play like 90% of the year, and I made the playoffs.
Let him. This is a clear-cut defense mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say CMC was there last week. Would I have lost you by 3 points? Probably not. But am I sitting there saying that? Probably not. So, that's fantasy world, bro. That is fantasy world. But if you win, that's kudos, bro. Major props to you. It's going to be a tough matchup without Dalvin Cook. I do like that you picked up Nwangu, because As much as I love Alexander Madison, it's the Alexander Madison show. I have him in my other league as well. Shisho picked him up in this league. So
let's fucking go, baby. Let's go.
The one thing I will say as a
That
Viking
Dalvin
fan,
Cook? That looks like Dalvin Cook.
the one thing I'll say as a Viking fan is we've been using Kene and Wangu more recently, and I like what I see from him. So I'm encouraged if he gets more touches and gets more snaps. So there's always the aspect that
7 touches for sure.
With Dalvin Cook, he was getting less touches. With Alexander Madison, there's a chance he gets more touches, which could mean less touches for Madison. So before you get your panties in a bunch, it might not be the worst thing for you because you would have automatically started Alexander Madison. You wouldn't have thought twice about it, right? Because he's a plug and play for Cook.
Yeah.
And you're right. He very well may be. And I feel like most people that have him should start him. But you might also be the benefactor of this if we're losing a lot to the Rams and running up the middle is not working and we need Wangu or we throw the ball a lot. So, before it's done, let's see what happens, I guess. But I'm with you. I would be just as furious.
And Wangu's like the home run hitter. I mean, you can get maybe 13 points because he breaks like an 80-yard touchdown or something like that. But the sure guy is definitely Madison, and not having Madison as like your backup for when Dalvin Cook is out, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, especially when you dropped him last week.
Yeah, because of COVID.
We were talking about it too. We were like, but it made sense, right? Like it made sense why drop him. Like it made. Did it make sense? Yeah, it did.
It did.
He had to.
There was nobody else he could have dropped on his team.
I had to pick up Stevenson. I have Jamal Williams. I've got everyone is a starter. Just about on my team.
Pull up the team.
If you weren't planning on starting those guys, I assumed you were planning on starting those guys. But it is what
it's tough. First of all, I just want to make a public announcement that everyone should go get vaccinated. Like, go get your vaccine. Okay. Like, do us a favor.
Yeah. Especially the players, bro. 10 days is too many days. What if Dalvin Cook got sick tomorrow? Then he'd be gone for next week too.
And this isn't even about fantasy for us. Like, if you are in the NFL, you are detrimental to your team, especially if you're like a big fucking position like the quarterback or the starting running back or something. And if you care so deeply about fucking winning, about doing well for your franchise, yet the one thing that's going to guarantee that you're not going to be out at least 10 days is getting vaccinated, and you refuse to do that. And you'd rather put plexiglass around your face 24/7 than do that. Like, I mean, the things people are going to not get vaccinated, which is now causing not fantasy owners. Let's put that aside, but your team in weeks 15 who are fighting for playoffs behind the 8 ball because of it. Like that contradicts you saying I'm a team first guy. I want to do whatever it takes to win. Well, look in the mirror. You didn't do whatever it took to win because you refused to get vaccinated.
Remember we talked about this at the beginning of the year? Yep. We're still in the Viking subject, so it's fair to talk about this. But we talked about how everything's going to go fine. We're going to be almost making so-and-so.
Yeah.
And then week 17, week 18, big COVID thing's going to hit. And like
said that
40% of our team's not vaccinated, including Madison, Dalvin Cook, Thielen, freaking out. Everybody, Kirk and Harrison Smith. So it wasn't just Kirk this whole time. It's literally all of our best players. So we're screwed. And it's incoming. So it's like if I could bet like Vegas style, like Vikings are going to get hit with like 7 COVID cases next week, I would do that just knowing that I'm a Vikings fan. I would just do it just because it happens. Stuff
Is
like
Jefferson vaccinated?
Probably. He's like all about social media and stuff. Seems very progressive.
Yeah. I've already lost a lot of anti-vaxxers with this conversation right now, but go fuck yourself, anti-vaxxers.
Yeah, dude, welcome to fantasy football. The emotions come piling in. I love it. That ran really long in that segment, so let's jump to the next game. The Lions are on the board taking on the Falcons here in Atlanta this week. Atlanta 6-8, Lions 2-11-1. Falcons getting a ton of points and love at home. 5.5 points at home favorites, over under 42.5. Falcons still mathematically not eliminated from the playoffs, but there's too many things that have to go right for them to squeak in. Lions obviously already playing for next season. I thought they had nothing to play for, and they proved me wrong by destroying the Arizona Cardinals next week. So now it seems like nothing's off the table for this team. And I don't know. Are we seeing another Lions victory back to back?
We definitely could. I think that, at this point, you're playing for next season, and I don't know how valuable that number 1 pick as opposed to number 2, 3, 4 is for the Lions. I mean, if they're not gonna, if you're the Lions and you have number 1 pick, you could very well trade down and get the 5th pick and not have to, pay as much for the number 1 guy. I mean,
that's the value. You asked what the value would be for the number 1 pick, right? because I think you're referencing if they win, it won't really matter whether they're fifth or first. But if they don't need the number one pick, but they still lose, they can trade down and then get like a fourth pick and still get like a second round pick. So there's still definitely value, but I see what you're saying.
But also the other thing is like with Dan Campbell, a new coach, and you have these late wins in the end of the season, that's just momentum to build off of the next season. So this is like huge for the Lions. They have a favorable matchup against the Falcons, who also are not a good team. They allow a lot of passing yards, not a great run defense team either. Jared Goff has been performing pretty well for the last 3 games. He has a QB rating of 97 plus, not the ESPN rating, but the QBR rating in the last 3 games. And he's got some players to throw the ball to. We talked about Monterey St. Brown. Josh Reynolds is kind of stepping up. And then they've got this guy, Craig Reynolds, whose name is Netflix. I think he was watching Netflix when they picked him up or something. And so, things are just kind of working out for the Lions, for them to definitely beat a Falcons team where the line is 5.5, which seems kind of outrageous given what we saw from Lions. Right. I know sample size is just 1 game, but I like the Lions' chances here.
Yeah, the Lions are definitely a more complete team, if you ask me. Like, the Lions have played pretty great, right? They put up a fight against the Ravens. They put up a fight against the Vikings. They put up a fight against the Steelers. They put up a fight against the Cardinals. Like, isn't that good enough to be considered like a competitor? Like, they're not as bad as the record shows by far. Like, definitely not. And these young pieces are coming together. They're getting Swift back. Gotta continue, please, somebody else.
Yeah, got something in your throat. No, you're good. You're right. Yeah, they are. Shovit, the point I like about what you mentioned is momentum, right? You got a first-year head coach. It seems like you're not going to fire him anymore. Like, he's the future, right? I know they started off so bad, but you saw the emotion. You saw how much he cared about his team. You saw how much the team, came together around him despite not having a single freaking win, right? And that says a lot when you have a coach that has 7 wins on the Vikings and I don't see a single player coming around with him, It matters. It matters. Right? Like, the caring aspect of shit matters. So Dan Campbell definitely cares. We mentioned that the Lions care. They fucking try hard. They may not be the most talented bunch. Pretty much every week, every team they play against, they're going to be less talented, but hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. So that's true to the bone. So Shisho, what were you saying before you
I don't remember. Okay. It's not a big deal.
I think you were saying that Swift is coming back.
Yeah, Swift is practicing, and so is Jamal Williams, so they could both very well play this week. So, just that's important to note because that just makes them a better team, and that could hurt Monterey St. Brown because they love throwing to their running backs. So, got to monitor all this stuff if you want to start any of the Lions players.
Yeah. Weird thing about the Falcons, did you see Kyle Pitts was a Pro Bowler?
Yeah, he's actually playing the best season a rookie tight ends ever played. That goes under.
Weird.
Yeah, it's very weird, but that's how scarce tight ends are. Like, Tony Gonzalez never had a season like this. Gronk never had a season like this. So it doesn't look that great, but I'm sure he's going to improve next year.
Yeah, I think the sky's the limit for him. I just thought that was weird to see, but
yeah, for sure. I think Schultz deserved it in the NFC, right? Like,
I just felt like there were so many other tight ends that even though they, it's scarce, that actually had more consistently productive weeks, week in and week out. But I guess maybe because he's a rookie and all that shit, they're like, oh, okay, he's already doing this as a rookie. And
yeah, there's a lot of bad calls with this Pro Bowl stuff. Like, Kyler Murray should not have gotten it over like so many other quarterbacks who are better than Kyler Murray in the NFC. Like, Matthew Stafford could have deserved it over Kyler Murray.
The good thing is I take the Pro Bowl to mean absolutely nothing anymore.
Yeah,
it's just a popularity contest. Like, we've seen Mitch Trubisky be a Pro Bowler. So if you ever needed to
no, that was Nickelodeon. Never mind. He won the Nickelodeon Choice Awards.
But yeah. So I just thought that was one weird thing. But yeah, I mean, 2 teams that don't have a lot of playoff hopes. Even though mathematically the Falcons do, I still do like the Lions just with the trajectory, the fact that they're coming in and playing hard, and they're rarely laying duds. And the Falcons have done that, so they lose really badly against bad teams. So we'll see how that game goes. Let's take it to Cincinnati, guys. This is a huge game I want to talk about. Cincinnati is hosting the Ravens this week. Both teams coming in here 8-6, right? Both teams are 8-6. The winner is going to be atop the division in the AFC North. And did you guys know that the Ravens right now at 8-6 aren't even in the playoffs?
No, I didn't know that.
That makes
Things
sense.
that should blow the Ravens are 8-6 right now and are not in the playoffs. And so this game is for first place in the division. And then if you lose, you're literally kicked out all the way to the 8th spot in the AFC. So that AFC wild card contention, like the battle of 8 and 6 and then 7 and 7 teams is absolutely nuts. So this game, divisional game, you think they have the same record on paper, but the Ravens are currently mathematically not even a playoff team, and the Bengals are winning the division. Bengals are favored by 3 points at home here. 45 is the over-under. Yeah, I mean, I want to say, let's see what happens with Lamar Jackson comes back and plays. But, I mean, Tyler Huntley has held his own, and so I don't think this team, at least right now, should be viewed as anything less of a team with him in there. So I'm really looking forward to this game. I think the over-under 45 kind of looks appealing. I expect a lot of points to be put up. I don't know what you guys are seeing here.
Yeah, I think that could be very much the case. I mean, Joe Burrow played lights out against the Ravens back in their first matchup, and so that's why the Bengals have the tiebreaker there. But I expect a similar game. I think the Ravens allow a lot of passing yards, and Joe Burrow and company can definitely get the ball into. Jamar Chase has been having a pretty lackluster performance in the last 3-4 weeks, but I think this is where he comes back and it starts being utilized for what he was the first 8-9 weeks of the season. Another guy to look out for on the defensive side for the Bengals is Trey Hendrickson. He's got 13 sacks this year, and the Ravens allow a lot of sacks, partly because they run the ball a lot with their quarterback. So then that kind of gets you tackles for losses, which counts as sacks. But that guy is a beast. And so, he might just as well get a sack this week as well. And so, I like the Bengals' chances here. You've got Chidobe Awuzie versus Hollywood Brown, who's the guy that the Ravens will probably try to throw to. The only thing that I like the Ravens' chances is Mark Andrews against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's not very good against the tight ends. So favorable matchup for Mark Andrews this week.
Yeah, last time I checked, Chidobe Oguzie or whatever, he was on the COVID list. So I'm not sure if he's out of it already. He might be. I'm not sure. But that's big news for the Ravens receivers because they're not really playing to their full potential. And if their Bengals' best cornerback is out, then sky's the limit. And I'm sure Huntley at this point, he's 3 weeks into this whole shenanigans. He's getting used to his stuff too. He's probably only getting better. And if I'm a Ravens fan right now, I don't want Lamar Jackson back because Huntley's playing lights out. He's playing better than Lamar Jackson had before Lamar Jackson left with the injury. So, and you have really nothing to look forward to if you're not going to beat the Bengals. Because if you don't beat the Bengals, you can't be number one in your division. Then what are you even doing in the playoffs? You almost lost to the Lions. You're hanging on by a thread, Ravens. You have to win this game if you want to be competitive in the playoffs. Unfortunately, the Bengals have had the Ravens number the last 5 games. They've lost to the Bengals. This is a weird stat, but they haven't lost to them 5 in a row. But the Ravens have lost their last 5 games versus the Bengals, in which both teams entered the game with a winning record. So when the Bengals are pretty good, the Ravens lose to them, at least as of recently within the last 5 games where that stat matters. So it's again AFC North battle. These things get dirty. There's probably going to be some ejections. Who knows? But the Ravens are going to have to find a way to stop the Bengals' passing attack, which they have not done. They haven't stopped anybody's passing attack in a while. So,
yeah, I expect a shootout. I expect points to be scored on both sides. I like Jamar Chase. I think he had his best game of the season against the Ravens and Marlon Humphrey the first time they played each other.
I was in Miami when I saw that, and he was playing against me.
Yeah, and then the Ravens. Tyler Huntley had a phenomenal fantasy game last week and a game overall. I think he had 35 fantasy points. So as somebody who has Lamar Jackson in my other league in the playoffs, I have picked up Huntley because I might just have to start him, unfortunately or fortunately. We'll see. But should be a good matchup. I'm very excited for that show, but I'm sure you're tuning in as a Pittsburgh fan who's, half a game out of the first place in that division as well. Who are you hoping wins this game?
It's tough. I think I want the Bengals to. I want the Ravens to win because that would make it a tie between them. I'm not really sure how that plays with. I'm not sure. We've lost to the Bengals twice. I think we beat the Ravens once. So so just so we can have a tiebreaker against the Ravens.
Yeah,
with the Ravens to win.
That makes sense. Another game on the board that is an AFC East divisional matchup here. The first place Patriots, who are 9-5, are hosting the second place Bills, who are 8-6, just one game back here for that divisional race. New England at home is favored by 2.5 points, over under 43.5. New England looking to bounce back after that rough performance last week against the Colts, in which they were not able to run the ball and not get much going offensively. Again, the Bills turned it around, finally won a game last week after dropping a bunch of games, but they're still holding on by a thread. We talked about the playoff contention here. Buffalo is the 7th seed, right? So that's why the Ravens are out of the playoffs, is Buffalo is the 7th seed, and they win the tiebreaker over the Ravens based on common game win percentage. So this will be interesting because Buffalo is going to have to continue to win at 8-6 in the AFC. Unfortunately, that doesn't right now guarantee a playoff spot, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, I feel like there was three teams that were playing in that field that last game. It was the Bills, Patriots, and then God or Mother Nature. The winds were up to like 30 to 50 miles per hour, and the Bills just were not able to stop the run. And Patriots just kept giving the ball to Stevenson, and that was the whole game plan. No answer for the Bills in that scenario. And then Josh Allen just could not get it done. He wasn't able to pass the ball, partly because of the wind factor. But the Patriots defense is also very good. And so I'm sort of expecting a similar fashion or similar game plan for the Patriots, where they just try to run the ball. Will that be enough to stop Josh Allen this time around? I'm not sure. I'm going to lean Patriots, but if this is a close matchup, I mean, it can go both ways, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the Bills have a lot more to lose than the Patriots do here, mainly because of the record, but also because of just Bills have a lot more to prove. They do. Like, they've been playing like ass. Let's be honest. Josh Allen leads. I'm pretty sure he leads all fantasy players with the most fantasy points, right? But that doesn't translate to regular NFL play. He makes such erratic throws that end third downs really early, that end drives really early. And, he's really good with his legs, and he's found like specific players to target. But when the game is on the line, he hasn't been able to overcome the things that he's known to overcome. The things that make Josh Allen so unique, he hasn't really been able to capitalize on those things. Like, he got stopped at a QB sneak for the touchdown to win the game. He was short a yard when he's used to like hurdling over these players to get the yards to win a different game. So these little things that have been helping out Josh Allen to be this big name, they haven't been working out. So he's been having to rely on his passing, his like completion percentage, which is not as good as it should be for a quarterback like this. And he's thrown 12 picks. You can't justify that. Yes. If they were like 11 and whatever, yeah, he's throwing picks to make big plays happen. Sure. But when you're 8-6 and you're losing games that you should be winning, the picks got to go, right? Like, the picks can only work if you're winning the games. If the picks are forcing you to lose these games, then they got to go. So I think this is a big Josh Allen game. I'm going to pick the Bills on this one. I did go against the Patriots last week too, but I don't see the Bills being there's no Mother Nature like you mentioned earlier, and the Bills aren't really restricted in their play where they have to do something they're not used to doing, which is run the ball. So I think they're going to open up the playbook a little bit, and they've got enough data from last game to see how the Patriots run the ball. Like that's for sure. So I think they have to be able to stop these holes, because the Bills, they're a good defense. We've been saying they've been playing shitty teams this whole time, but there are certain factors why they're better than most defenses. And I think they need to implement that this game against the Patriots and beat them, because if they don't beat them, they're with the Ravens. And what are you going to do in the playoffs if you can't even beat teams in your own division?
Yeah, at 7 losses in the AFC, you're flirting with not even making the playoffs. Right now, You're flirting with it at 6 losses. So I don't think the Bills can afford to lose very many more games. So they are playing for a little bit more, but the Patriots are 1 game ahead in the division. So a loss here would put them tied atop there. So I think both teams come in with a lot to play for, a lot to prove. So again, another really, really big matchup on the board. So it just seems like that's a theme this week. There's a lot of very, very big marquee matchups on the board. A matchup that's not marquee, a matchup that's kind of toilet bowl-y, if you will. The Jets are hosting the Jaguars this week, guys. So with all these marquee matchups, this is whatever the opposite of marquee would be. I can't think of the right word right now.
I am so excited for this matchup.
You have fantasy implications?
No, but the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. I mean, that is Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson. Like, come on, what more could we want? Both quarterbacks that have been under, like, just terrible. just bad.
So bad that Vegas didn't even know which team to favor, so they just made the line even. They're like, we have no fucking idea. So there's no team that's favored because we don't know how this game's gonna go. The over/under is 41.5. The Jets are 3-11. The Jags are 2-12. They're pretty much fighting for like the number one pick at this point. So it's like you win and you don't get the number one pick, you lose and you kind of do get the number one pick. So it's like a weird mixed feeling and mixed bag. But after giving the Jags any sort of faith, especially by Vegas, by giving them 5.5 points against the Texans, and they just weren't even in the same fucking ballpark there. There's nothing that leads me to believe the Jags are any different. Like the Jets at least had shown spurts when they had their backup, Mike White in, Michael Carter, a bunch of dump offs, like Elijah Moore, like they've had flashes. Tell me one thing the Jaguars have flashed all year.
I got it. Hey, Vegas. Hey, everybody, meet the Robinson. Okay. No Urban Meyer. This is James Robinson's show to steal. They need to feed him the ball. They need to keep giving him the ball against this poor Jets run defense. And that's the key to victory. I've got the Jags beating the Jets just simply because of James Robinson getting the ball.
I hope you're absolutely wrong because I'm facing James Robinson and I have James Robinson in my 2 leagues that I'm in the quarterfinals or the semifinals. So I don't know what to want. So I'm going to hope for an average day for James Robinson. Let's get 11 points, James Robinson. Can you do that? 11 points, no touchdowns. Let's go.
That's like 110 yards in non-PPR.
Yeah. Well, let's just stick with like 80 yards and a couple of dump offs.
Yeah.
We'll call it a day because the dump offs will happen, right? I'm excited for this game only just to see which quarterback can talk shit over the other quarterback because they both suck. Like, I don't even want to spew out these numbers because they're just not worth it. They're just both playing absolute trash. And what's a better way to end your season or towards the end of your season than being like, hey, I was supposed to be the number 1. I beat the number 2. Or like, hey, you should have got me number 1, but you got me number 2. So I'm excited strictly for that factor and just to see what other fantasy options are available for next year that could come out of this game.
Do you think motive, because it sounds like motive is the reason to want to watch this game for these quarterbacks, is motive a reason to be balls to the wall and start either of these quarterbacks in fantasy this week against this piss poor defense that they're facing?
No. I would side against Trevor Lawrence more than Zach Wilson, but no, you're not going to start him.
I would side towards Zach Wilson more than Trevor Lawrence because Trevor Lawrence has thrown 6 games and no touchdowns. That's like half the games.
Trevor Lawrence does the one thing that they ask quarterbacks, doesn't do the one thing they ask quarterbacks to try to do, throw for touchdowns.
No, but he does have more touchdowns than Zach Wilson. Barely, but that's only because
Zach Wilson's been hurt. Yeah. Even line's funny. Again, even matchup, even line. Nobody really knows what the hell's going to happen. You guys have talked me into actually being excited about this game, so I appreciate that. Can't wait to watch. Next game on the board, another divisional matchup. The Giants are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. Giants are out of the playoffs at 4-10. Philly gets 10-point favorites at home, over under 40.5. Philly is 7-7 right now, so they are still fighting. They are 8th place right now in the wild card contention. So right behind Minnesota. Minnesota wins the tiebreaker over Philly based on win percentage in common games. So Philly gets an easy matchup against the Giants here, favored by 10. They should probably just stick to their formula of running the ball. That's been working. The Giants have been the Giants all year, just a wreck, a mess, injuries, just a carousel of, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers. So the Eagles, they're in contention. They just have to win out and they have to win the games that they can win. And this is a game they should win.
Yeah. The Buccaneers should definitely win this game, but they are out of, their key players.
Buccaneers?
Are we talking about Panthers?
Eagles, Giants.
Oh, Eagles, Giants. All right, so take this one. I'm going to have to come back to this.
Yeah. Fun fact. It sounds like a perfect time for a fun fact. Miles Sanders has 120 rushing yards in 2 straight games. No Philadelphia running back has ever had 3 straight games of 120 or more.
That's wild. Isn't
that freaking crazy? LaShawn McCoy, Westbrook, all these big names, even Howard. No one's done it.
I got a weird question to that. Did Miles Sanders have 120 at least in the last 2 games? So whatever he combined for the last 2 games, is that more rushing yards than he's had the entire season before that?
100%. I would bet a lot of money on that.
That's kind of what I figured too. It's kind of what I figured. That's so wild. The Eagles literally. God, okay, here's a great example. Here's a great example of a team that came into the season being like, Justin Fields is our guy. We're going to live and die by Justin Fields throwing the football. They literally did it so recklessly the first 3 or 4 games what am I saying? Jalen Hurts. Yeah. That you were wondering what the hell are you doing? Everybody sees that that's all you're doing. And what did they do? They completely shifted their entire mindset scheme, the way they approach this season. In the middle of the season, they're like, you know what? Let's fucking scrap this. Jalen Hurts, you're good, but let's at least run the ball to set up the passing so it takes less pressure off of you. They made a 180 shift, and now they literally run the ball more than like any other team in the NFL.
They're the number one team that rushes the ball.
And they're doing it successfully. So it can be done despite everything else. You can make adjustments when the shit you try to do does not work.
Yeah, I mean, it's great midseason like turnaround for the Eagles there. And just like it just goes against the grain of what we think the NFL is about. It's all about passing the ball, these crazy little schematics that they do. But at the end of the game, it's just hard knock football, and just give it to your running backs, find some open holes, and pound it, run the ball, control the clock, and get the job done, which is what the Eagles will continue doing against the Giants. And it's going to be a tough matchup for the Giants this week as well.
I just looked up the Miles Sanders stat. It's not true. He's got 74 yards and 94 yards and 64 yards, stuff like that. Okay. But you're right for the most part. None of that was noteworthy. It ended up with like 6.4 fantasy points, and he fumbles a lot too. So you lose some of those points. So he doesn't show up on the stat sheet. But guess what? I'm starting Miles Sanders, Antonio Gibson in the same 2 RB1 and RB2 spots this year. That's the first time I've done that in weeks. It's probably since like week 5.
So, bless your heart.
You gotta be the ones. You gotta be the ones. Again, it's gonna be a good matchup. I expect the Eagles to take that one. Again, Giants really not playing for anything. They've been unimpressive. Mike Glennon, whether it's Daniel Jones.
The Giants do get Tony is activated to play, and Galladay's ready to play. So those two guys, I don't know if they'll actually play, but they're ready to play.
They got to play against Big Play Slay too. So one of them has to go against Big Play Slay. And if it's Mike Glennon throwing the ball, like honestly, like I don't care who's out there. Mike Glennon sucks. He's so bad. That's
a serious neck he's got.
Have you seen that meme on Twitter? It like showed I can't remember what it was showing, but it was like a bunch of. So let's take it to Carolina. Carolina, Shova, you jumped the gun, so I'll let you lead this one. The Buccaneers are in Carolina here taking on the Panthers. Buccaneers are 10-4. Carolina comes in at 5-9. Tampa Bay is 10-point favorites on the road, over under 44. Shoshova's already talked about how decimated that receiving core is, that offense is as a whole. Shova, you're very confident in the Buccaneers in this game. Talk to us why.
I am very confident in this game just because of the Tom Brady factor, and they're going to find a way to come off that loss against the Saints and be able to beat the Panthers. The Panthers are just not a good team. I understand that their defense is fairly decent at this point in the season, but it's just not going to be enough for Tom Brady and company. You mentioned Tyler Johnson, Perriman is there. These guys should be enough to get the job done. And on the other side, the Carolina Panthers, there's talks about whether or not Sam Darnold will come back this week off the IR. So question marks on which quarterback will play. So maybe that kind of changes up the game plan for the Buccaneers a little bit on defense.
Cam Newton's going to start, but they're also this is a quote I have. Okay, I have an exact quote from the head coach.
Damn, when did you see him?
No, I got the notification. I wrote it down here somewhere. Hold up.
That'd be sick. You're like,
really?
He said Darnold will have a role, but that's it. I don't know if that's for this upcoming game or if that's for future games.
Imagine having. Does that mean he'll just put on a headset and like tell Cam Newton like who to throw the ball to?
True.
Like,
that's up to you to decide. But these are the words.
They have 3 quarterbacks that they don't want so desperately that they're circulating 3 unwanted quarterbacks. It's like the worst of all worlds, basically, is kind of what I'm gathering.
If there's a team that needs to tank and probably get some better draft positions, I think it's the Carolina Panthers. So maybe it's just to figure out which quarterback will suck the most and then put them in. At that case, honestly, it's got to be PJ Walker.
I was talking to my buddy Jake, who's a diehard Panthers fan, and he was saying like word around the locker room is Matt Rule has lost the locker room. They don't respect him. It's early, but I thought it was premature. Like I thought they should have. I think he deserves a little bit more time. I'm pretty sure they just hired him beginning of this year, or either it's his first year or second year. But nonetheless, I think his job's on the line. Like I don't know if they're envisioning life after him, but the Panthers are in disarray. Like at times we've seen their defense be good. Cam was came in and gave us false sense of hope, and they're just bad. So I'm with you. I think they need to look on the next season and kind of figure out how they want to move forward because, CMC, he's expensive. He's a running back. Shelf life's not long, but you can still get a ton of assets if you trade him away. So a tough guy to let go of, but we also understand the life of a running back in the NFL. So it might just be a hard decision to make there. But yeah, I expect the Buccaneers to come away victorious despite the receiving core. One guy I wanted to talk to you guys about, Rojo. Rojo should, steal the show here, although they did sign Le'Veon Bell and activated him, so he might be the backup. But how confident are you in starting Rojo with seeing how insanely impressive Fournette's been so far this year?
Confident enough to start him over Le'Veon Bell for sure. I don't think anyone else is going to get any of the carries. They don't trust any of these other guys. It's been Fournette and Rojo, and they both just kept dropping the ball all year last year. And then Fournette finally realized how to catch the ball. And then Ronald Jones just kept fumbling. So then Ronald Jones just completely lost that job. He went from being the starter to giving up catches to Fournette to just giving up all the runs and catches to Fournette. And now he gets a chance to make up for it. And we've seen what Rojo can do. He's a very good running back. Like he'll hurdle over people. He'll do all kinds of stuff that you want like these type of players to do. And he gets that opportunity to do it. I don't think this whole Le'Veon Bell thing is, this is Tom Brady we're talking about. He's not here to experiment shit. Like he does what he wants to do. Yeah. And I think he has this big trust factor with Rojo, although he doesn't trust Rojo as much because of all the fumbling. That's what I've heard, is that he just doesn't like Rojo. But now what are you going to do? You go with a new guy that doesn't know if you're going to hand it off with your left hand or your right hand, or you're going to go with somebody that knows your behaviors, right?
Does Le'Veon Bell even know the playbook, right?
Dude, definitely not. Definitely not. It's too early. Le'Veon could easily get like 10 carries at the end of the game if they riot the Panthers, right, to get things moving. But I'm pretty confident in Rojo. I'll take the blame if Rojo gets like 2 points, but I'm moving some players to make room for Rojo in my lineup if I have them.
So are you starting Rojo at Carolina, or are you starting Jeff Wilson at Tennessee?
Damn. Wow. That's tough. Both these are really tough. I guess I'll go with Rojo.
Yeah,
just because of the factor of I might be running for 3 quarters here. Like after the first quarter, it might just be run. So
yeah. I also lean Rojo just because Wilson against decent run defenses where they have to throw the ball. Again, he doesn't see a lot of throwing downs. So his best game was last week against Atlanta where he finally had 21 carries, but he's seeing like 10, 19, and 13 in the weeks where Mitchell's out. And with Rojo now, like we mentioned, there's like no receivers, no Fournette. Le'Veon Bell just got picked up, and Tom Brady loves to fucking dump the ball off. So
that's 7 catches, book it. That's 7 catches for sure. Like he's gonna have 7 catches. And we got Wilson over here losing rushes to Deebo Samuel, right? So Deebo Samuel could steal those touchdowns, and Rojo has nobody to steal that from him. So and he gets the biggest dump offs from the biggest dumper offer in the history of NFL. So yeah, we're sitting pretty if we're deciding between Rojo and Wilson.
I know it's probably a very advantageous situation to be in because not a lot of people in the playoffs can like have that decision to have to make. Yeah. But I have a slew of running backs got to talk to you guys about, but I expect the Buccaneers to take care of business. Again, they can move to 11-4 and they can compete for that second spot or possibly continue to push for the top seed because they're only 1 game back from the Packers anyways. Take it to Houston, guys. Houston, the Texans are hosting the LA Chargers, who come in as 10-point favorites, 8-6. Texans are 3-11, over under 45.5. Chargers have looked impressive here in recent weeks. We want them to put together better football because I think all of us really see some excitement in that offense and in the future of Herbert and the things that they can do in the playoffs if they're given the opportunity. A matchup here where there should be no doubts. They should come in here and they should riot, take care of business.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the get right game for the Los Angeles Chargers. They need to be able to beat the Houston Texans, and the Texans did had a solid performance last week, but it was against the Jaguars, and this is a whole different matchup. The Chargers are a better team on offense. To beat the Chargers, I think you would have to run the ball efficiently on this team, and I don't see the Texans being able to do that with their RBBC committee that they have.
Their running backs that nobody wants.
Exactly. So yeah, Chargers all the way in this one.
Yeah, this is my survivor pick, right? Like I'm not even batting an eye on this one. It's pretty self-explanatory. The only thing that could make the Chargers lose is that they allow 3rd down conversions on half of 3rd down attempts. Like literally, you just toss a coin, they allow it or they don't. That's the worst in the NFL. And if a team like the Texans can just keep churning the ball forward, this might be a low-scoring game. And if the Chargers somehow don't connect on these plays, and things don't hit like they normally hit for the Chargers, Texans can take control of this game just by running the ball because if you can't run the ball and if you can't if you can't stop people on third downs, any team can lose. Like, it doesn't matter what your team's name is. I don't care. If you can't stop third downs, you have a chance of losing the game.
Yep. No, that's definitely a key stat. That's going to be the key to success. Chargers just need to step on the throats, even if they're giving up third downs. Every offensive position they get the ball, they should be expected to score. The Texans aren't good. So the one thing from a fantasy perspective, we've talked about a little bit, Eckler's situation's a little bit iffy. That opens the door up for Joshua Kelly or Justin Jackson. Depending on kind of who, I don't know who you would trust more in that situation.
They haven't said who's going to get the start. I've got Justin Jackson on my bench just to deploy if I get a more clear head, but I don't know. I think it's like 50-50. I'm not sure.
But don't be shocked if Joshua Kelly like 15 carries. Whenever Eckler's not playing, they never go with like one guy. There was one time they went like Joshua Kelly 22 rushes or something like that. This was like 2 years ago. Or last year, I forget, but it's very much a committee. It's very much a committee. So don't be surprised if there's random outcomes. But at this point, it's safe to say Justin Jackson is probably the lead horse, right? Because they've been waiting for this. That's why they have him. They've been waiting to deploy him, and he's always hurt. He's always injured. They never get to use him, and this is the time to use him.
Let's go, my Dalvin Cook savior, Justin Jackson.
Chargers should take care of business. Next game on the board, this matchup doesn't hold a lot of implications from playoff perspective. Maybe fantasy-wise, there's some guys you guys want to talk about, but the Bears are at the Seahawks here. Two teams that are mathematically out of the playoffs. Bears here at 4-10. Seahawks now 5-9. They're favored by 6.5 points at home, over under 42.5. What are you guys excited about in this game?
This is such a weird game. You have two teams that are both in the same kind of record wise, 4-10, 5-9. I'm not really sure how you move forward with your games for the rest of the year when you're not going to get the number top 5 pick and you're not going to be in the wild card contention. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of approach the game. Maybe they're just trying to build some momentum for next year. Matt Nagy's got something to prove, but Seahawks couldn't get the offense rolling last week. Bears couldn't either. So I'm expecting a low scoring outcome on this game. I'm going to lean Bears just because Justin Fields, I feel I have a little bit more trust in him and that offense more than the Seahawks because we haven't seen Metcalf and Russell Wilson kind of connecting. So I'm going to lean Bears, but I think this is a tough matchup for me.
Yeah, Seahawks on paper are actually much worse than the Bears. They have the 30th ranked offense, 31st ranked defense. They're 27th in passing and they're 23rd in rushing. The Bears are actually 8th in rushing and 9th on defense, right? So they have something they're good at. It's not the Steelers. The Seahawks are not good at anything. And, one thing that stands out to me, like I've mentioned it before, is why is DK Metcalf not getting the ball? He hasn't scored a touchdown from Halloween to Christmas. And in this night, we'll wish this never ends. We'll wish this never ends. No, but for real. How do you not score? That's a long time. And the reason I'm trying to figure out why, and I think I've come to somewhat of a conclusion, at least to tell myself why this is happening, is that they're averaging a time of possession of 25 minutes a game. That's the lowest by any team in 2 decades. They just don't have the ball enough to give the ball to their receivers. They're just 3 and outs. And that's not something we're used to from a Russell Wilson-led team, but that explains very well why there haven't been enough targets to go around for the receiving corps.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As a DK Metcalf owner, it's been incredibly frustrating. We've already talked about his athleticism and his raw talent. So why is the production not there? It's weird. It seemed like last game they just tried to force feed him. That's why you see 12 targets, but a lot of the targets were not even in the realm of catchable. And it just seems to be inflating the numbers where they're at least trying to force them the ball. But in reality, how many of those are actually catchable? But yeah, Shovit, you mentioned it. It's a weird matchup where, both teams don't really have a ton to play for. There's a lot of question marks heading into next season. Playoff hopes are pretty much practically dead. So what is the motivation? This is a great question because we're hitting this for maybe the first time this season outside of the really bad teams that already knew they were going to be bad. But for these teams that at least tried to be competitive, for the Bears, at least you have Fields to look forward to next year as far as progression goes. But for the Seahawks, where do you go? Question marks with Russell Wilson in the future, question marks with Pete Carroll. So who's got even, some hidden motive to at least come out and actually play fired up in this game when there's not a lot to play for?
I think outside of the GM, like everybody's got a motive, right? Like the GM's the guy that wants to tank because that's how he controls the team. Versus all these other guys, they're fighting for a job. Like a coach, he still wants to get hired by somebody else. He doesn't want to end the season on a loss. These other players are playing on a contract year. Their contract might be ending this year. They're not going to get signed if they play like shit. So there's always something to fight for. It's easy to talk about like tanking and whatnot because that's as an organization, that's what you should do. But from like a ethical standpoint, nobody wants to do that, and everybody has something to play for as far as a bigger contract in the future. So I think you'll still see a competitive game. You're not going to see like blatant tanking. But yeah, both teams have very much enough. They have enough to prove for them to still fight this one out.
Yep. Take it to a game that has more implications. Kansas City is hosting the Steelers this week. Steelers coming in at 7-6-1. Chiefs are now 10-4, favored by 7.5 points at home, over under 44.5. Show up, your Steelers have to practically win out to have any shot at the playoffs here. What realm of possibility are you seeing the Steelers somehow come away victorious here?
Yeah, the Chiefs are not good in terms of run defense. So for me, I'm expecting the Steelers to go back to the running game that wasn't there last week. Use Najee Harris and try to get some more yards, control the clock, and just run the ball on the Chiefs to try to not get Mahomes to get the ball to his prime targets, Tyreek Hill and Kelsey. And the other thing is, I'm just praying that Kelsey and Tyreek Hill don't suit up. The line is 7.5. Kansas City, I mean, I'm sure everybody and their mom is going to go for Kansas City Chiefs, but we've seen what the Steelers defense did last week against the Tennessee Titans. We've seen promises of them being able to turn the ball over, and Patrick Mahomes has been notoriously turning the ball over due to deflections, interceptions, what have you. So we just need a stellar defensive performance, a stellar run offense led by Najee Harris for us to have a shot to win against the Chiefs. It's going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah, I agree with like 75% of that, but I think it's instead of the running, I think it has to be you guys have to utilize the passing game because you're gonna have to keep up, right? The Chiefs might turn the ball over, but like I mentioned over and over all throughout the year, they're gonna move the ball. It doesn't matter if it's Tyreek Hill, it doesn't matter if it's Kelsey. It's still one of the young best quarterbacks we've ever seen. And with Andy Reid, anything is possible. Like they're gonna use the shit out of Mecole Hardman probably, and he's gonna look just like Tyreek Hill. I have no doubt the Chiefs are just going to keep doing what they do, just like how the Colts did what they do. The Chiefs are continuing to do what they do. It's going to be the next man up thing. It's easier said than done, but the Steelers defense has some weaknesses, the running,
right.
And the fact that the Chiefs they've become a running team. Like they love running the ball now. It's just everybody loves running the ball all of a sudden, and the Chiefs are one of those teams. So I can see these running backs having a good day, and if that works out, if that actually works out, if they run the ball well, then it's over. Then it's definitely over because then that sets up the third downs, and then it's play actions for Patrick Mahomes. Like those end up with touchdowns a lot of the times. So I think the key here is to play like the Chargers style of defense. Allow those running games here and there, but just be aware for anything that comes out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, because if he's having a good day throwing the ball, then you're going to have to keep up, and I'm not sure if you can keep up.
Yeah, run defense is going to be key, right? The Chiefs have really, really relied on running the ball. They've shown that they're not afraid to run the ball a lot, despite all of the offensive weapons that they have. So, the Steelers giving up 143 yards per game on the ground is not going to be pretty. So, whether they enforce stopping the run, that's just going to be more guys in the box, and that's way scarier for a one-on-one matchup with Tyreek Hill or Mecole Hardman or those fast guys on the outside. So, they're going to have their hands full. That's why it's a 7.5 point spread, and COVID and everything will probably play a factor in this game between now and Sunday. So,
but just keep in mind, like this is probably the biggest game for the Steelers all year. If you win this game, you're back to shit talking the rest of your division, right? Because two of them are playing each other. One of them is going to lose. You're going to have a shot. There's still 2 more games left. It's still anybody's game. And if you beat a team like the Chiefs, that's the statement game. That's saying I'm ready for the playoffs. So, Chiefs can still lose this game and still end up as the number 1 seed when it's all said and done. So they don't have as much to play for as the Steelers do. And if the Steelers can win this game, that's a huge emphasis. That's like, hey, we're still alive. We're still here.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that. I think I mentioned that I wanted the Bengals to win, but it turns out that the Steelers rest of the schedule is we've got the Chiefs, then we've got the Browns, and then we've got the Ravens as the last game of the season. So Ravens winning actually might be a better chance for us to make the playoffs. So that's what's needed here for the Steelers need to win this game and then continue to win out the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of our teams, moral of the story, control your own destiny and win out.
Yeah.
The Raiders are at home this week. They're hosting the Broncos, 2 7-7 teams fighting for that wild card that we are continually talking about. Vegas getting some love. Favorites at home, 1.5 points, over under 41.5. I assume no Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah, you're muted, Show. But yeah, no Teddy Bridgewater. So any team that's starting Drew Lock first, I mean, unless they're really, really going to put the emphasis on being very pick and choosy about where Drew Lock throws and how much they run. I just do not trust Drew Lock enough. He turns the ball over too much. He forces the ball too much. And he thinks like he's got a big arm, but I feel like he thinks he can depend on his arm more than he actually can because he's not that good. So if the Broncos can play like Teddy Bridgewater Broncos, where they run the ball a lot, then yeah, the Raiders, anybody can beat the Raiders. The Raiders have been very unimpressive, but Drew Lock is the X factor here. If he plays like the Drew Lock that we know, Raiders have a pretty good shot to win at home here.
Yeah, I think they do, but I don't want to discredit the Broncos defense. I think that this is a pretty good defense that can stop Derek Carr and be able to just keep the game at least competitive enough so that it may be just like a field goal game. And then, Broncos end up winning it in the fourth quarter with 3 points. I think that's an outcome that can happen. And then Broncos run the ball often, and they run the ball with Melvin Gordon, with Javonte Williams. So I still think that the Broncos are the better team here, even with Drew Lock and no Teddy. So I'm going to lean in the side of the Broncos.
Yeah, there's some fun reasons to choose the Broncos. So the Broncos have allowed fewer than 17 points in 8 games this season. That's tied for most in the NFL. So they definitely don't allow people to score. And I mentioned the number 17, right? Las Vegas has fewer than 17 points scored in 6 of their last 7 games. Do the math here. Like you gotta score points to beat the Broncos, and you're not doing that. You haven't been doing that for 6 of the last 7 games, and that's all they do. That's what their strong point is, not allowing you to score. I'm not sure if Derek Carr can pull it off, but from an offensive standpoint, like the Raiders have always had a good offense. I just don't get why they suck. It just doesn't make any sense. You have a mediocre quarterback, you got mediocre running backs, you got some mediocre wide receivers, and you got a mediocre offensive line. Like, shouldn't you be able to pull off something with that?
There you go. That's the
mediocrity. 7-7.
Yeah.
They're the definition of exactly what they are. They stay true. They stay true to themselves. You got to respect it.
They really do. This is about as mediocre as it goes.
Yeah, mediocrity at its finest. 2 mediocre teams fighting for mediocrity and in the mediocre bowl. So
this might be the fake news bowl of the year.
Yeah,
this might solidify the fake newsness.
This is like the 5th and 6th seed in a consolation bracket after they just missed out on the playoffs in fantasy, and they're playing each other. So it'll be interesting. Again, 2 teams still not mathematically out of it, so a lot to play for. That should at least make for a decent game. The Cowboys are the next game on the board. Another divisional game. Man, there are a lot of games in the division this week. Washington football team's in town in Dallas here at Jerry World. Cowboys are 10-4. Football team come in at 6-8. Cowboys are favored by 10.5 points here, over under 47. These 2 teams faced off a couple weeks ago in a must-win game for the Washington football team, in which they were unable to win, and the Cowboys really solidified atop the NFC East, and that kind of put the Washington football team out of the playoffs. Now, technically, they're not mathematically out of it, but the injuries, everything, the road's looking glim in Washington.
The road's looking glim in Washington, and I'm not sure if Heineke is coming back this week or not, but the Cowboys are just the better defense. They're going to be able to stop whoever is at that quarterback position. The only thing I want to, as far as betting purposes goes, I'm not sure I would take the Dallas 10.5 spread. I would probably take plus 10.5, just because we've seen the Cowboys offense not being as well as they've been in the beginning of the season. So to be able to cover that 10.5 points, that seems a little too much for me. But in terms of winning the game, Cowboys should be able to handle the business and beat out the Washington football team.
Yeah, just one thing you got to take into consideration is the football team had 32 people or something crazy like that on the COVID list, and I think all of them or close to all of them should be back by the Cowboys game because that was diagnosed over 10 game span, right? So they weren't able to come back for the last game against the Eagles, but they should be able to come back because this is a Sunday night game against the Cowboys. So that changes a lot because before that happened, this was a solid defense. They were making some moves. They were really stopping. They even almost beat the Cowboys. It was 27-20 game. They made a surging comeback at the end. But yeah, I'm not sold on the Cowboys. I'm not going to say that they're 10-4 and people are having a great time here in Dallas. But like we mentioned over and over, there's some glaring holes. There's some glaring holes here, and I just want to see if the football team will really play some dirty football here, enforce the running game with Gibson with his 9 toes, and McKissick should be back because it was a concussion, so they'll have that utilization to pass if they're down at any point. So the weapons are there. The weapons will be there, and another day to see if the Cowboys are for real because each and every day, at least for the last 4 or 5 weeks, they're just squeaking by. They're not really enforcing their game plan. Dak